Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Workshop, featuring Dungeon of the Endless. Now for you guys who don't know, I've finished playing Armello and I've decided to share another awesome game with you guys. This time, a weird tower defense. I don't know how to explain what Dungeon of the Endless is, but long story short, it's a roguelite real-time tower defense game that centers around using heroes in order to get our objective from point A to point B. That's pretty much it. You spend the entire game trying to accrue resources, manage your heroes, and survive. But I think it's way better to let you guys see it for yourself. Now, unlike many of the other games I've played, this requires the use of the keyboard, and I don't know why this happens, but whenever I use the keyboard, you might hear this. If you heard that, well, I'm sorry. But if you didn't, then good job on me on the audio sliding. Anyway, let's start a new game here, and I want you guys to know that I've played around 11 hours of Dungeons of the Endless, and I don't think I've ever won the game on normal difficulty. I've won it on easy difficulty, of course. So basically, the story is that our ship's crashing down and we have the ship core that we have to get out, and I don't know why or whatever. I've unlocked a lot of the heroes, but not all of them, and since this is the PC version of Dungeons of the Endless, we get to use TF2 characters. But I won't use them for now because, mostly because it feels really weird to me to just have TF2 characters in this game. So there's easy and then too easy, so it's funny like that. So there are actually multiple dungeons that we can enter, each dungeon offering a different challenge, and of course I haven't even unlocked everything because I haven't beat a lot of the game. So the escape pod's your basic dungeon, the infirmary pod has something to do with healing, the armory pod has, I think it just starts you off like really stacked. That's all we have right now because I suck at this game, but maybe as I go through this series, we're gonna see how it goes. So there are many kinds of heroes in this game. So you have opportunists, bounty hunters, thugs. Those are actually just specific names for specific heroes, but there are many heroes in this game and they all each have specific roles. So we'll talk about that while I'm picking heroes. For example, you have Max. Max is an everyman. He pretty much does everything, and he uses pistols. So each hero not only has a specific kind of role that they usually play, but they also have different kind of equipment. So this is very important to note when picking heroes, because not only do you need heroes that fulfill different kinds of roles, you also need heroes who have different kinds of equipment, because if all of your heroes use pistols, you're gonna be really starved for items on every single one of your heroes. So from my understanding, there's usually a few roles in this game. So you have people like Sarah Numas. Sarah Numas is a runner. That's what I usually call these characters. And their main strength is to be able to run the core to the end of the level, which is what you want to do. The thing about this, though, is that when you pick up the core at the end of the level, you get swarmed by monsters. So the faster you get the core to the end of the level, the better. This is why characters with a high amount of speed is very good for this role. So somebody like Sarah Numas would be very great for that role. Now, other characters like Gork, Butcher, Corroser here have really high damage per second, but most importantly, he uses miniguns or assault rifles. These kinds of characters are what I usually call defenders. In this game, you go through the map, through the dungeon, and you actually end up creating your own maze for the enemies to go through. Certain times you'll need to establish bases, and these bases are very good for keeping up your defenses and making sure the enemies don't get to your core, which is what you want to bring to the end of the level. Defenders are really good because you can put them in choke points and they'll usually just wipe out entire waves of enemies all on their own. So defenders are very important as well. And then finally, you have people like Opbot here. Opbot is what I usually call a scientist, though there can be many other terms for it. A scientist like Opbot's main ability is the fact that they can operate quote-unquote modules in the room, and this basically allows them to amp up the efficiency of your modules, giving you more resources. They're not very good at combat, but they're able to easily buff up your modules, aka your towers. So that's what they're really good at. Most of the heroes fit under one of those three categories, but there's a fourth category that I've actually neglected to mention, and it's the category that Hikensha is in. Hikensha's main thing is that he can work in rooms that are dark. In this game, you have rooms that are powered by dust and rooms that aren't powered by dust. So dark rooms are usually really bad for your heroes, but certain characters thrive in dark rooms, like Hikensha here. And the thing about it is that when you enter a new room, it's usually dark. So the thing about it is that these kinds of heroes, like Hikensha, or sometimes even Sarunumas, they're what I usually call scouts. They can usually break off from your team and go and search new rooms for more resources. And they can usually hold their own, like Hikensha, or run the heck back to the choke point, like Sarunumas. So with that in mind, I know it's a lot to take in right now, and I know you don't even know what the hell I'm talking about, but I want you guys to know that there are basically those four kinds of heroes, and usually your party should consist of at least one of each. But of course, things don't always work out that way. Now, when I usually start off with my favorite heroes, which is Lady Jolere Tulak. Tulak's really good. She's a scout, a runner, and of course she has a high amount of health. She also eats up a lot of dust, which we'll go over later on. And usually I like taking a support, so we can't have two melees. So I guess we'll pick Professor Josh Ntello. I don't know how to pronounce that. He's a scientist and an operator. So there's that. Let's start this game, and when you guys see what's going on, I think that's when you'll understand. I just wanted to give you guys a short breakdown on what kinds of heroes we're looking at. So this is the loading screen. It looks pretty. This first episode is going to be a bit long because it's going to be filled with explanations. Okay. So here's the important part. You can pause this game by pressing space. This is our crashed ship, and we've crashed somewhere in the middle of nowhere. So let's start with the interface. This is the hero interface, and you can level up heroes, heal them, restore their abilities, or dismiss them for varying resources. So I guess the important thing to note here is that heroes can be leveled up, healed, you can dismiss them of course, and you can restore them. Also note here are the active skills, which will allow us to perform really powerful abilities. Now, one of the biggest things about most dungeons of the Endless games, actually, the Endless series spreads over multiple games, including Endless Legend, which is a 4X game, and we have the FIDSci, or the Industry, Food, Science, and Dust system. Well, it's in a different order, but these are four resources which are very important for our game. Industry is what allows us to build towers, and that's very important for setting up defenses, especially for setting up home camp when you want to leave the game. Want to leave the floor, I mean. Science is used to research your modules to upgrade them or get access to new modules, or of course, therefore restoring the hero's abilities. Next up is food. Food is arguably one of the most important resources in the game because it allows us to level up heroes, heal them, and as well as recruit new heroes when we find them along the way. This is very, very important because you usually want to get to 4 heroes immediately. And finally, we have literally the most important resource in the game, dust. Dust is used to improve the capacity of your crystal and buy merchant items. Essentially, the more dust we get, the more this we have. So dust actually increases the maximum number of this. And this is very useful because it allows us to light rooms. Lighting rooms is very important in this game because whenever you open a door, dark rooms can possibly spawn enemies. And you can only put modules in lighted rooms or powered rooms if you want to call it that. So with that in mind, dust allocation is very important because for every 10 dust, that's one room we have to power. We can power. So let's look at our modules here. These are modules that we can use to create more science, create more industry, create more food. These are... This is the prisoner prod, which is the only tower we usually start off with. And the rest we have to research first. We'll see how we can research them later on. This is our crystal, or the core. And the goal of the game is to get this thing all the way to the end exit of the level. And the problem is the moment you pick this up, all the rooms in the level will open. And it'll just spawn endless waves of enemies until we get to the end of the level or we die. So with that in mind, let's start off this game. Now, you notice here that there's a +5, +2, +4. These actually indicate your income. So that's very important. So let's select both of our heroes and let's send them to open this door. Are there any enemies? Nope, but there is dust. So let's power this room with dust. Alright, so we have a center module here, which is really good because that means we get to build something. Specifically a creator or major modules. So, can Josh operate already? No, he doesn't operate yet. Okay, so with this in mind, notice how there are 2 rooms here and this is one big room. I do think this would make a great home camp, but let's not overcommit that yet. Let's start with an industry generator in this room, or maybe a food replicator. Let's start with a food replicator, actually. And that should build it right there. That's excellent. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Now that we have quote-unquote home base, let's start off with Lady Tulak over here, and then start opening doors. As we can see, there are enemies here. She'll run back in here, and we'll have our heroes fight these enemies. So, as you can see, it's basically a weird roguelike dungeon crawling tower defense. This room is now unpowered, and if we open this next room, there is a chance that this will spawn enemies. And since we are not using our dust for anything else, might as well power this room in order to benefit from it. In order to prevent monsters from spawning, I mean. And we've entered this room, and this says you've just found a self-powered room. Now, the self-powered rooms are really amazing for me because they essentially don't require power to be used. So now we actually have 2 free rooms that we can power without having to worry about anything. We can actually now level up characters, and oh goodness. So a big part about Dungeons of the Endless is knowing when your characters get their specific skills. I know that Josh gets his operate skill at like level 3 or 4, so we're gonna rush that. It's level 3. So operate is the skill we really want because Josh is able to effectively increase the efficiency at which we're able to produce resources, which is very important. So again, let's scout into this room. And there is a merchant here. Oh, okay, so this is the other use of dust. When we talk to this merchant, we can either use industry or dust to buy things. Hydrated water. Unlocks extenders. Extenders is a skill. And a toothpick. So our hero's attack is essentially not that high. If we spend some industry, we can unlock the toothpick and equip it onto Tulak over here. And the toothpick is a spear type weapon, as you can see here. And she only uses spear type weapons. Different characters actually have different equipment slots, which differentiates them very much. So let's not buy anything yet because I want to build a generator here. So let's send Tulak back. Oh, also, this guy has a pug. Best pug, NA. Okay, so let's open this room. Okay, so now we're starting to go deeper into the dungeon. There are no enemies here. Let's power that room. And this is a science module. Okay, so let's pause here for a second and start building industry generators here, which is good. And now we have the science module. So now you'll see this. We can spend science in order to gain new modules. So we have the Science Creator 3, which is really good because it basically is just a better Science Creator. Though it does take 65 science to make. The Dust Field Generator basically adds defense to our heroes, which is okay. The Kip Cannon is a cannon that deals more damage the more science you have, if I remember correctly. And the Hollow Hero is essentially a tank. Tank module. So this is, now we're seeing the hard part of Dungeons of the Endless, wherein we now have all of our dust occupied, but now we have this room. So this makes it very dangerous for Tulak over here, because when she enters this room, it could spawn enemies here, and then spawn enemies here, and then she'll be overwhelmed. Which is why she's a very good hero, because she has a high amount of speed and a high amount of health, making her an excellent candidate for a scout. So that gives us equipment. Oh, now we see that it spawned some enemies. So we're gonna run back to the base and wait out the enemies. Now, here's another interesting mechanic about this game, is that your heroes actually heal when all enemies in the current wave have died. This is very important to take note of because of the fact that it means that you don't have to waste a lot of food on healing your heroes because they usually heal themselves. Now notice something here. Why am I continuing down this path instead of opening this new path? This is mostly because when I spawn new enemies, especially because I don't have every room powered, they could come in two directions, and this is really bad for a tower defense game where you want all enemies to be spawning in one place at a time. Nothing here particularly excites me, so let's go to the next room and start fighting things. And there's the exit. That's very good. So now that we've found the exit, we just have to bring our core from this room all the way to this room. And that might seem like a really easy task, and that might be, yes, but the moment we pick this up, this room and all the other rooms connected to it, cannon will open, which means that they all have chances of spawning enemies. Remember, lighted rooms never spawn enemies, so that's very good to remember. So now we can buff Othello to give him Operate. Now, Operate major modules. The hero needs to stay at least one turn in the room to improve the module's effect. So now he's in the room and he's doing module stuff, which means that this thing will start generating way more industry. Oh, no, don't move out of the room. We'll start generating way more industry, which is really good because I want to take advantage of this merchant and buy some equipment. There you go. He bought some equipment, and now Tulak can explore and deal more damage to enemies. So notice how every time we go into a new room, we get dust sometimes. Oh, so now you saw here that enemies have been spawned. A lot of enemies, actually. And I think this might be a good time to start showing you guys why it's a tower defense by spawning some prisoner prods, which are essentially towers. There we go. So you've seen how it works now, right? Now we have increased industry generation, which is really good. And we now have some defenses over here. Now, here's a conundrum you usually can have. I can keep Josh here and have him repeatedly fight things, which is really good. But at the same time, I think the first early levels are easy enough that Josh can actually go to the food and generate more food for us. But right now, I really want to buy extra stuff from this merchant, so we're not gonna do that. 69 dust. I wish I had 70 instead. It looks like we're nearing the end of the level. Oh, there are enemies. So different enemies actually do different kinds of things. Let's power this. No. Let's power this one. So this enemy, I think, goes for modules first. It's been a while since I played this game. If only I'd powered that faster, we wouldn't have had to fight these guys. So as you can see, Tulak was taking a lot of damage that fight. And this prompts me to buy her some equipment, especially some defense. Oh, it does give her less defense. The dehydrated water is really good too because it increases her max HP. So I guess we can do that. Go through this, dungeon a bit and try to get there. That is the last room, yes. Oh, it spawned some enemies, so let's run the heck away from them. So... okay, so now I just have to keep track of her health. This is actually a quick bar to be able to heal your heroes without having to go to the menu. We have to pull her back, kite them, and there you go. So now you notice that our modules are all damaged, which is really bad. I think certain operators can learn the ability to repair them, but Josh isn't one of them, so that's bad news bears. So we've gone through all the rooms, and this means that if we go into the tactical map here, we can now just run our crystal from here over there, which is gonna be really awesome. So we should probably buy the guard uniform and put that in our inventory. Oops, my mistake. So we can buy the guard uniform. That's good. And now it's in our inventory. What? There you go. So this can go on to our ever lovely Lady Tulrak, except it lowers her speed by 1. But that's not that big of a difference. As you can see, speed here is 28. So might as well give him some defenses as well. So now we're gonna go into the quote-unquote end game of this floor, which is to pick up this crystal and run it the heck into this exit. Now, note that enemies are all gonna come from these 3 rooms now because every other room has been powered. So it might mean that we want to put some extra defenses on this choke point, but I think 3 is enough. So let's start this run home. So now she's running home. See, as you can see, her speed is significantly lower compared to what she usually has because she has to carry the weight of this crystal. So I'm gonna have Josh defend the fort until we get to the very end. And now we can have Josh run. As you can see, Josh runs really slow. Now all my heroes are here and I can press exit and evacuate this floor. Floor cleared. As you can see, there's a lot of floors. So like, hold on, it's Tuesday. No, it's, I'm totally confused. As you can see, they've been stuck in this floor for quite a while. So I'll end the first episode here because a lot of it has been explanations. But I'll try to keep the episodes relatively short compared to this one in terms of the explanation. So that pretty much does it for this episode of the workshop. If you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, do tell me in the comment section down below and I will be sure to answer. Without much else to say, thanks for watching and good night.